In the early hours of January 9th, 2018, a powerful storm front approached Montecito. Most residents were sound asleep, exhausted from a traumatic holiday season. The massive Thomas fire had subjected them to multiple evacuations and weeks away from their homes. Now a new threat loomed: heavy rain. Above East Valley Road, evacuations were mandatory. Below it, they were voluntary. Beginning at 3:34 a.m.
It's not based on science.
Processes how the creeks are supposed to actually behave.
Feet above the valley floor to get out of this event, And so we need to do better in educating people to recognize this, whether we get a series of sirens or however we get a warning that it's time to move, either upstairs or up the side of the canyon. Sometimes people's lives could have been saved by just walking about 50 yards or less if they'd have gone up instead of looking and seeing what was actually happening. One guy told me I talked to in San Ysidro Creek that he saw this flow coming, and because there was an explosion and fire, he saw this flow coming, and because there was an explosion and fire, he could see. And he looked out the window, and his car was going by. And so he rushed back in the house and up, I think, to the second story and survived the event. But he was about to go out in there, would have walked right out in the flow. So we need to do more about having people perceive what these things are, even if they're rare.
And when you look at the debris flow, it really begs the question. So it's rare to have those types of rocks come down, but the consequence is enormous. So it really, has an interesting question. What do we design for? And I'm throwing that question out. Do we design for a 1,000 or 10,000 year event? Design for a 1,000 or 10,000 year event? I would submit to you that we need to seriously rethink what we're doing here. Because when we get the opposition that we had on removing sediment and putting it in the ocean, and we have that emotional debate, it's not based on science, including everything that's in that debris flow or debris-laden flood gets delivered to the ocean. But when we as a community, and your flood control district, you're paying for this. This is you, it's not me, it's all of you. You're paying for this. This is you, it's not me, it's all of you.
A flood channel in a natural state. Here we have concrete walls, and so we've taken out some of the during large rain events. So a creek is anywhere water flows least during large rain events.
And survive the event.
Designed for a 1,000 or 10,000 year event.
The mountainside above Montecito was bare and blackened. Beginning at 3:34 a.m., 4 extreme bursts of rain pounded the steep slopes. Within minutes, an ocean of mud was hurtling down the creeks toward the unsuspecting town. Boulders the size of cars rolled along like marbles. On San Ysidro Creek, the raging flow of mud and boulders jumped the banks and broke a gas main. An explosion lit up the sky. It was the first sign for many that something was terribly wrong. This was a catastrophic debris flow, a rare event in the region. Under climate change, scientists say debris flows will likely occur more often, larger and more frequent fires, and more intense rains. Entire neighborhoods in Montecito were wiped out on January 9th. 23 people died, and 470 structures were damaged or destroyed. The flow swept away homes, cars, utility poles, and oak woodlands. It engulfed Highway 101 on its way to the sea. The deadliest place to be that morning was the west bank of Montecito Creek, just below the bridge at East Valley Road. 11 people perished there as the flow raced through, demolishing everything in its path. It was not the first time this neighborhood had been hit. In early 1914, a torrential debris-laden flood destroyed portions of an historic Latino community known as Spanish Town. On the east bank of Montecito Creek last January 9th, Mark Karplus was awakened by the early morning deluge.
I looked out the window from my bed, and I just noticed the sky was orange. And I kind of shook my head, and I said, what's going on? It looked like Mars in the morning, orange sky and everything. It looks like some boulders had hit a gas line, and the gas line was leaking and started on fire and was going straight up in the air. And I could see 2 columns of flames coming straight up. And I can see 2 columns of flames coming straight up. And the room started to shake. And I'm shocked. What's going on? And you could hear a big rumbling sound right after that. And I'm thinking, okay, those are probably boulders going down the creek. Because when we get a lot of rain, when the creek starts to fill up, boulders do go down the creek. And it makes a loud noise. And all of a sudden, it got really, really loud, really quickly. And the ground was still shaking. And I saw a wall of mud, which was rocks on top, rolling around on the top. Trees in there, and just mud, liquefied mud. And it was just tumbling down. And it was coming really fast. And I said, oh my God. And I couldn't believe it because it looked like 40 feet high at that point. And I thought I was dead.